Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One thing that's super duper true for me is that nature can bring you to peace, meditation, and presence. Certainly one of my favorite subjects to talk about, and I've got my colleague to tell us more. Robert Hensley is with us on Truth Be Told, Club Paranormal. He's got a show, The Minuteman Report, but he's also doing some amazing work around rewilding. Welcome, Robert Hensley, and please tell us, what is rewilding?
Woohoo!
Wow!
I know. I wish there was
Feeling wild?
I wish there was some applause. really pump my ego.
I'll do what I can.
No. So, rewilding is kind of a term that we usually hear when we're talking about urban spaces that are being kind of redeveloped or allowed to kind of go back to becoming wild spaces. And through kind of eco-psychology, we've kind of reclaimed that term for people. So we're rewilding ourselves, which is, no, we're not going to be swinging off of vines. I mean, we can if we want to, but really it's about kind of rediscovering, reclaiming, appreciating the very necessary kind of connection to nature.
So, okay, let's break that down.
Sure.
Because I can certainly relate, and I'm sure lots of people do. I mean, we all feel great when we're outside, and mostly. Maybe there's people that are working on farms all day or freezing cold outside and doing deliveries or something that don't agree with being outside. But I guess I want to talk to you a little bit, in a way, your trajectory, because, and I can relate because I too was, and still am as a day job working around entertainment.
Yes.
And we could certainly get into the specifics of that and why it maybe drives us to needing meditation. But I guess I want to talk to you about how I know I did, and presumably you too, had to come to an urban area to create a career. Right. And we're certainly here in an urban area right now in Burbank in the studio.
Right.
So how do we find a balance around that? Because, hey, I know you got to have a certain passion and aspiration to find your way into entertainment. In your case, film. In my case, music.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we've done that. Mm-hmm. And yet, where are you at with needing the balance?
Well, I think for me, it was really just that I came from a very rural setting. I had, the forest at my fingertips, open the door and step out into nature. And I never appreciated it. Didn't appreciate it, or didn't appreciate that at all. Really felt that what I wanted or what I needed for that particular part of my life was steel, glass, and concrete.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people, like being in the thick of it, and
not even the people.
not so much about.
Okay. I mean, give or take the people, but it was more for me. It was more just the.
Like the pace,
just the difference in scenery.
Yeah. The pulse, maybe would be a better word.
Yeah, the energy of an urban center. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I moved to New York City from, I went to college at the University of Iowa, which is, a sizable school, certainly. But yeah, my parents lived in a much smaller town in Iowa at that time. So same thing. I couldn't wait. Bigger the better.
Yeah, I just wanted to get out and experience something that was very different. Yeah. And, moved to Los Angeles. And I've dealt with being away from nature and kind of in urban settings for a really long time. And I think that during the pandemic, when we were locked down and I couldn't get out of the concrete and steel and glass, it started to feel like a prison. And I started thinking about where I grew up and what was so beautiful and wonderful about that. And at the same time, I was dealing with an injury that was threatening my career as a makeup artist.
Well, I'm sorry. What happened?
Long story. We won't go into it here, but during that process, that's how I found meditation. because I was having a really hard time with it. I was afraid I was going to lose my mind. And
pandemic time? Was this also?
Yeah, this was all happening kind of.
So injury and pandemic were all.
Yeah, it was kind of all happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And coming out of the pandemic was so. It was great for everyone, but it was kind of magical for me because I had stumbled into meditation. I was learning this way of thinking and seeing and relaxing and being. And I had just gotten my certification as a meditation leader. And it just seemed that there was a whole kind of world open to me if I wanted it that was not tied to the entertainment industry, that was not tied to being in a city. And so things started to change as far as how much time I was spending in Los Angeles versus how much time I was going to spend outside. And so I made a decision to, kind of exit the city for a while and build a tiny house at the top of a mountain. And
amazing.
So I have my own little piece of forest.
Yeah. Wonderful.
But I realized that in traveling back and forth and kind of working with, people on set and just kind of the people that you meet, that there is a disconnect between most people in contemporary society and nature. And the thing about it is that aside from those people who are working in extreme conditions, like in the blazing heat all day or dealing with, the snow when they're delivering packages, the thing that they're getting that other people aren't is there are health benefits that come with spending time outside. It's scientifically proven that you have to spend a minimum of 2 hours every week outside in order to experience lower blood pressure, decreased anxiety, increased immune function. There's just a wide variety of really, amazing kind of health benefits that come with just stepping outside your door. And that's not something that necessarily means that you have to be stepping out into, Walden Pond. Yeah. Here in LA, it's easy enough to step. Luckily we live in a city like Los Angeles that does kind of value its green spaces. Yeah. So we can step out and travel not very far and find a city park.
Get to a hiking trail.
Trail, anything.
Or a beach.
Yeah, a beach, anything. Spending time in green or blue spaces, water, marine spaces are great as well. But yeah, just having that time. I don't know if you've heard of forest bathing.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So there's
yeah, what's going on with that? I think it's great. Did it wasn't it originated in Japan? Like it was a concept that we borrowed from them.
We did. We borrowed this beautifully poetic way of saying walking in the woods. And it's more than that. It's a philosophy of kind of stepping into nature and observing and breathing. It's actually kind of considered a mindfulness practice. So it's about being present.
See, yeah.
And, but what's great about that is that it's a form of nature immersion, of taking yourself out into the forest and allowing yourself to be present in the moment with these trees, with these plants, with these rocks, with the stream, with the air, and just breathing. And the great thing about that is that Japanese scientists have now proven that the natural aerosols from trees kickstart the NK cells in our body. So NK cells are called the natural killer cells. They're the kind of supercharged immune cells that kind of destroy tumors and fight infection.
Incredible.
And so they've tested it in the forest, and then they went into a hotel and they sprayed cedar aerosols through the ventilation system and realized that everybody who breathed those aerosols while they were asleep had the same response. Their NK cells were supercharged and their immunity was just on point.
You said cedar, correct?
Yeah. That was what they used in the test in the hotel.
Wow, that's amazing. I have an anecdote for that. Actually, I had COVID, and I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't right. Like it was affecting me in terms of more headaches and sleeplessness, and I snuck out. I figured I was avoiding people, and I went to the forest. I was up in Santa Cruz and was able to go to the redwood forest. And it was incredible walking through there. Suddenly, how much better I felt. Like I had felt sort of confused and feverish. And then suddenly I'm just back to myself in the trees. I'm walking through this incredible grove, and it was an elixir for sure.
Yeah. Cedar aerosols, apparently.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's just one example. And I think, I don't know, people forget. Maybe sometimes when you don't feel well, you think you're supposed to be snug in your bed with your blanket, quiet, cozy.
Well, we've been conditioned to think that, you know, when we're ill, when we're sick, that the place to be is a sterile hospital, that we're trusting medical professionals, and you should absolutely see medical professionals when needed. However, like for certain things, like sometimes just not feeling well, not feeling yourself, feeling imbalanced, sometimes all it takes is just throw off your shoes and walk across a piece of grass. You know, that grounding sensation, that spending time outside, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, or hell, I mean, stepping outside and feeling the rain on your face. These are, I mean, it's the kind of the personification of cleansing, you know?
Yeah.
But we live in a society where we've been conditioned to be further and further away from nature rather than closer and closer. And I think that one of the things, especially for myself and that I find with other people that I talk with, is that that disconnect has left us feeling wanting. You know, like there are just times when you feel like there's something missing and we don't know what it is. And it's not a new sweater, and it's not a new hat, and it's not a new guitar, and it's not a new anything. It's nothing that we can buy, because that mindset, that consumerism mindset, you know, kind of industrial globalization is what's pushing us further away from this sense of connectedness. And I think that when we really kind of tap in and we reconnect with nature, that's when we start to feel whole.
It's beautiful. So I want to talk about your meditation practice and help us understand it a little bit more. Now, you said that you're an instructor. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know if you want to maybe guide us a little bit and give us a few moments to figure that out. Well, let me ask my question first. Sure. So when you're outside in nature, like say I'm sitting in a park, and chances are there's going to be people around, one. And two, you are going to hear sounds. You might hear cars, but let's just try to hope not too much. But you might hear birds and things that are going to get your attention. Do you find that when you started is nature providing a meditation in the same way that maybe sitting quietly in a yoga studio, meditation studio that has fewer distractions? Where do you think it's going to be easier? Like, I know it supports us being outside, air, freshness, groundingness, and yet there are going to be some things that might get your attention too.
Okay, so it's kind of the same, but different, because the point of meditation is to be hyper-focused. Right? When people say, I have a hard time meditating because I can't turn my mind off. Well, we don't want you to turn your mind off, because that means you're dead, and then meditating doesn't matter. So
there is that.
Yeah. So the point is not to not think. It's to focus on one thing, a singular thing. So if you're in a yoga studio and it's a completely sterile environment where there's no sound, and you're just kind of in a free space, then maybe you're focusing on the color that you find behind your eyelids. Maybe you're focusing on the beat of your heart or your breathing, or perhaps you are taking yourself on a little journey and you're tucked into your imagination and you're moving forward. When you're outside, it's kind of the Occam's razor. Right? The simplest solution is usually the right one. So if what you're hearing when you close your eyes is the whoosh of the wind or the chirp of a bird, focus on the chirp of the bird. That's your thought. That's the focus.
Yeah.
And what that does, again, is it connects you to the place where you are, which again is a mind. If you're into mindfulness, I know not everyone is. Some people are kind of like, mindfulness. But mindfulness or being present can be really helpful, especially if you're trying to establish a connection with nature. So having a connection to place is really helpful. So sometimes using those things that we hear, and you're right, and it's the same way if you're in a yoga studio and a Mack truck drives by.
Right. Or somebody coughs.
Right. I mean, there's always going to be some distraction somewhere. Right. And it's really, again, because the only thing that we can control is how we react to things. So
important.
So
there's a tool for you, everyone.
Yeah. So if we're really in a place where we're really meditating, those distractions fall away and we don't hear them. We don't hear the dog bark. We don't hear the children laugh. Unless their ball hits us in the face, we shouldn't know that they're there. But to sit quietly in nature and allow kind of the sounds of nature to be what we focus on. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah,
that's great. There would be some changeability, sort of variety in that, like you say, the wind. I like the wind reference, and it's not going to be steady. And yet, at the same time, I guess maybe the quietude that you're trying to establish, that is the constant.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I practice elemental meditation, which we've talked about before.
Yeah. And I know there's past interviews which people can check out, but go ahead and let us know because you've got a great deck.
So for elemental meditation would be like, it's honoring our connection to the natural world, which oddly enough is what led me to rewilding. But if you're in nature, if you're outside, if you're in a natural setting, to know that you want to focus on each of the cardinal elements, earth, air, fire, water, to take that moment to, focus on the sound of a running stream. And that's your connection to water. To feel the sun on your skin and focus on that is your connection to fire. To hear the wind or to listen to the birds is your connection to air. To feel the ground beneath you, to really take in the weight of your body against the grass. Nice. That's your connection to earth.
Yes.
So it's really easy, much easier in some ways, to build or to reclaim a connection to the natural world when you're in the natural world.
Okay.
But it's not impossible to do that when you're inside. There's a great exercise, which is in my ebook, Rekindling Your Relationship with Nature, which is available on my website, that it's basically, you can do this meditation anywhere, but it's allowing yourself to feel that you're growing roots and to visualize those roots going into the ground. And so if you're in a house, if you're in a building, see those roots go through the floor and wrap around the support columns and through the parking garage until it finds the earth. And then that's where you connect. But just knowing that you've created this physical connection in some way. Again, you don't have to be outside. It's easier if you're sitting in the grass because then it's just like, oh, I've got roots in the grass.
Right.
There's a little more work if you're inside.
I remember the first time I had a meditation and I was being guided, and it was actually in the Dakota apartment buildings in New York. And so I was up fairly high, like maybe 14th floor or something like that. And I was like, okay, I have to go through all these floors with this grounding. And I remember being sort of baffled by that concept, but trying it, it's just saying like, well, I think this is how it's supposed to be done. And just letting it go deeper and further. And
I will give you a tip too, that if you, again, and this is part of having a balance between the natural world and my steel, glass, and concrete world, is that if you feel confident in understanding and knowing that the floor beneath you is an extension of the earth, because it's sitting on a foundation that's buried in the earth.
Yeah.
And so it's all supporting, it's stacked. So as long as you understand that and you can take that into your meditation, you don't really need then to kind of feel the need to
go through every single
floor. Down 14 floors. You know what I mean? But but it does help sometimes to have that visualization of seeing those roots seeking out the physical earth.
Yeah.
To kind of root you, to anchor you.
Excellent. No, it's great. And I appreciate some of your specifics around meditation. And I mean, what do you think? Do you want to try to give people a little bit of a couple moments of
what would we like to do?
A guided meditation? Well, I mean, maybe we're talking about the grounding. I mean, do we want to try a little bit of that and little breath work and finding our way into quietude? Okay, so if you're driving while you're listening to this, keep your eyes open.
Just keep driving, or we'll listen to it again when you get home. When it's safe.
Okay.
Come back. I'll still be there.
Yes. Replays, archives exist evermore.
Okay, so before we begin, I'll say that usually for a meditation, we suggest that you sit in full lotus or semi-supine. I'm a lazy, so I like a semi-supine position, which is when you're flat on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor.
Fantastic. Okay, great.
I also like that too, because when I'm feeling grounded, it allows me to feel grounded from head to toe.
Well, right. And I feel like I need my whole body to relax.
Yes.
So, yeah.
However, if you're in an office or you're sitting in a chair, keeping your feet flat on the floor and allowing your arms to hang off your shoulders, right? No tension in your arms, and really feel your hands weighted, like resting on the tops of your thighs. That's another really great posture as well. And we'll start with our eyes closed. And with our eyes closed, we'll focus on our breathing. We want to take 3 deep breaths. We'll go in through the nose, out through the mouth. We want to breathe all the way down into our belly, down to the diaphragm. And then when we exhale, we're going to breathe all the way out. Allow your diaphragm to push everything out. And we'll do that 3 times. Ready? We'll start with 1. Now allow yourself to find a natural rhythm for breathing. And we want to focus on the weight of our bodies, whether that's where your sit bones are sitting against the chair or your body is laying against the floor. Feel the gravity pushing down, but also feel the earth coming up to meet you. Feel that connection. And as you feel that connection, you'll begin to feel a little tingle where your body touches the earth. And as that tingle increases, fine white hairs will begin to sprout and reach out down towards the ground and dig into the floor and spread out across, looking for rich, moist soil. See those roots spreading out, reaching out, trying to connect with the earth. And if you're outside and that connection is almost instant, or if you're inside, see those roots going through the floor, across the rafters, down the walls, through your basement floor, and into the earth. Or if you're in the Dakota apartments in New York City, see those beautiful roots wrapping around support columns and working their way down, 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 all the way until you get past the subway and into the rich earth. And you can feel those roots sucking in water. Feel that coolness moving up into your body. Feel your limbs getting a little heavy. They're holding so much moisture. The earth is feeding you everything that you need Hold on to that water. Feel the coolness fill your entire body. Know that that water is being imbued with your life force, your energy, your love for the earth and the beings around you. And we're going to begin breathing out, exhaling through our mouths. And on each exhale, know that that water is being pushed back down through those roots and into the earth. We're giving back. So in your natural rhythm of breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and little by little, we're pushing that water back down into the ground. Our limbs begin to feel empty, almost weightless, as the water moves back down through the roots, out of our apartment buildings, out of our homes, out of our cars, back into the earth. And then slowly visualize the roots releasing their hold on the soil and moving back up, retracing their tracks, coming back up into our bodies. And when we're no longer rooted in place, we're going to take 3 more deep breaths. Again, in through the nose, all the way down into our bellies, down to the diaphragm, out through the mouth. Exhale fully, let the diaphragm push it all out. And now we'll start by wiggling our toes, rolling our ankles, flexing our knees, rolling our hips, rolling our shoulders, flexing our arms, wiggling our fingers, and allow your head to roll from side to side. And you'll open your eyes and return to being.
Thank you. Wow, that feels really, really good. It feels calming and energizing all at once.
It should. I think the thing that people need to realize, especially when meditating for reconnection, especially connecting to place or a connection with the planet or the natural world, is that it's an energetic transaction, that what we're putting out, we should be getting back. The relationship that we have with nature, historically, genetically, inherently, is one that's reciprocal.
That's great. And people don't necessarily remember that. Robert, I was looking at your Instagram account before. What's your handle on Instagram, by the way, that we want to share? We'll share both of them. So okay. My personal is at Rob Hensley. Okay, Rob Hensley.
My new project is Robert Hensley Nature Reconnect.
Okay, great.
And so that's at RH Nature Reconnect.
Nature Reconnect. So I don't remember where you had this posted, but it was a quote from Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Yes.
Right. Speaking of wild. So can you share what it, I don't know if you remember the exact quote or the concept behind it.
I don't remember the exact quote. I found it this morning, and I just remember coming across it, and it was bitingly sarcastic. And the most wonderful thing that I could imagine coming out of, and again, my image of Laura Ingalls Wilder is Melissa Gilbert.
Oh, well,
in pigtails.
I did,
because that's my Hollywood image of her. So I see it coming out of this little girl's mouth. But the quote had something to do with. I'm
going to read it.
Yeah,
I found it real quick here. Some old-fashioned things like fresh air and sunshine are hard to beat.
Some old-fashioned things. Yeah, that was the part that got me, because I was like, how are light and air old-fashioned?
And she wrote that. I mean, how old-fashioned is Laura Ingalls Wilder?
Right.
I mean, that's like 1800s, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I forget when it was.
So she wrote this at the turn of the century. Yes. So it was like, but it's the thing is that what we don't realize is that we've been this conditioning of like being disconnected from nature. I mean, we see it now. Like, I'm sure some parent somewhere is thinking like, oh God, my kid doesn't go outside and they sit there with their video game all day.
Right.
That's part of it. But then further back, like since the start of the Industrial Revolution, even before, we have taken this stance, which has only become more and more concrete, that man stands aside from nature, above it, that nature is something that we need to rule and conquer and control, and abuse. And that in doing so, we've created this kind of disjointed universe, right? With two almost warring parties, when it's really meant to be a symbiotic, reciprocal relationship. The earth is designed by, and if you feel that that's God or the creator or the supreme power in the universe, however it works, that the earth was designed to support life, and we were designed to work within the confines of this relationship with nature to give as much as we received. And we've really lost that, which is incredibly sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to think about it, because I'm going back to, old school, like the Laura Ingalls Wilder. And I mean, I think that, it was, if you were a wealthier person back in the day, you were supposed to be, sitting up straight at a fancy table, not running around in the mud. I mean, kids were taught at a young age. Their play was probably less so outside exploring, and more so learned the harpsichord or pianoforte, or things like that. Right. So I think the well-to-do, the educated,
and all of that trickles down. And again, they're man-made constructs. Nature didn't tell us that.
Right. Nature didn't. Right.
So, I mean, and the thing is that if we look at how this works, as far as like, whether it's, kind of through, ancient history of people gardening and beginning agriculture and farming, there is a certain level of man taking advantage of what nature could provide. But it's very different from living in nature and utilizing the land to sustain yourself than to over-farm.
Right.
And to, to kind of like deplete the land of natural resources to sell to somebody else. You know what I mean? It's industrial farming is very different from, a farmer who is just feeding his family.
Right. Exactly.
The idea that people needed to have money to increase their status or increase their class, so that they could sit up straight and have toys that were inside toys.
You're right.
Like these ideas took us from having a connection with the natural world and put us on a pedestal, made us feel like we were above, and that we were, what's the word? I just read Janine Canty wrote a book about collective narcissism that comes from this disconnect from nature.
Wow. That
because we've, and then of course, the 80s, think about like power financing and all this stuff where it was kind of like, we've become a society that's very me, and we're driven for self improvement and having self-wealth, not self-worth, self-wealth. And, all of these things, it's very much about what we have, not necessarily about what we give or what we, or how we behave or how we react or, so we're very much, we kind of support each other in this kind of materialistic worldview that doesn't really put any focus at all on we'd rather spend $1 billion on pharmaceuticals than step outside and just lessen our anxiety by spending 2 hours in nature.
Right. Well, right. I mean, that's like a whole nother show that goes into the whole healing process.
Yeah, but it's all connected.
We're moving quickly. We need, the pills are the easy solution. And no, it's very, I love this. It's always been a very interesting concept to me. It goes so much deeper than what I can really talk about here, or even that. I mean, and I think that this is the other thing too, is that when we go to kind of experts, and this is what I'm finding, people who tell us that they're going to teach us things, like they can only teach you what they know, right? So every time someone teaches you something and then you take it and try to teach it to somebody else, you're only teaching them what you know, because they didn't teach you everything they know. Right. They taught you what you know, but they don't teach you everything that they know. But then they can only teach what they know. And so there's so much more work, right? That we can't just say, oh, I'm practicing elemental meditation and I want to help people connect with nature, which is what I want to do. That's my goal. But there's so much more for me to learn and to continue to kind of pull together to share with other people. I think that it's important for us to, if we're going to reconnect with nature, that we have to connect with each other in an honest way to really, for it to work organically, for people to get the best out of what they're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? Exactly. And I was going to use the word heal as well. Yeah, and I mean, that has, it could be healing from something very specific or more just general, the pain body that exists out there. Yeah. Also. So the actual word wild. Yes. I mean, rewilding, sure, is connecting to nature, but I feel like it could be so much more at the same time. Have you consider that when you use the concept? So, I mean, rewilding is, again, this term of things returning to nature. There's a teacher that I've worked with who teaches a class about reconnecting to your wild self. Right. And when we think of something that's wild, it's something that is kind of free is the one word that comes to mind. Yes, free, but also something that is untouched, undisturbed, something that we can't really get to. And so the idea of rewilding is not necessarily taming, right? Or, but it's kind of reaching out for a new frontier. Right. And so finding your wild self is really kind of doing the work to go inside and reconnect with that part of you, because we all have it, right? That genetic history, that part of us that remembers when we as a race, the human race, were part of the natural world, where we weren't above it, where we weren't outside of it, but we were part of it. Yeah. And so to find that, and to then reconnect and rewild and to become again part of the natural world. Does that mean howling at the moon and dancing naked? Hell yeah, if you want it to. I mean, if you want it to, we're here to tell you. Tools for transformation. There's nothing that says that you can't put feathers in your hair and do a little jig and swing your ass around outside with no clothes. And if that's what reconnecting is for you, then absolutely do it. And I mean, this has certainly been a through line in all my interviews. It's like, just watching the cycles of the season. Whether we're talking to somebody that comes in and talks to us about, Yule, right? And looking at the dark days of the year, or the phases of the moon, how astrology interweaves with that. I think you're inviting us to explore all of these tools that exist out there.
Absolutely.
And yet also knowing when it comes right down to it, you could also just be outside and take a moment and look at the sky.
Absolutely. I think that with anything, people are going to take what they want to take and leave what they want to leave. But that if you only ever did just the bare minimum, which is spending 2 hours of time outside per week. Per week. That's 2 hours a week.
Yeah.
8 hours in an entire month.
Yeah.
That's 18 minutes a day if you want to break it down. That you really that's all it needs. That's all you need to kind of start receiving kind of the physical and mental well-being that comes with that connection. You know, if you spend 15 minutes, just 15 minutes a day meditating or journaling about your connection to nature, you get the same benefits. If you do those same 15-minute exercises while you're spending 18 minutes outside, boom, like the mother load. You know what I mean? Ultimate reconnect.
Bonus points.
Ultimate reconnect. But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, when you talk about the wheel of the year, again, that's a natural cycle, a rhythm that's been in nature since the beginning of time. And we've stepped away from it. You know, man used to, you know, live their lives with the seasons, understanding that we were looking for food, growing for food, resting.
I was going to say sleeping a bit more.
Yeah, resting, planning, hibernating, basically, you know. And now it's kind of like, you know, your job at Wally World doesn't let you sleep through the month of, you know, more December. It's, you know, we're forced by
It's hard.
Yeah, we're forced by corporations.
That's a whole nother topic as well.
To change the entire
I think a lot of people during you hear so many people during the holiday season that, you know, Northern Hemisphere, that, you know, the depression you hear about. And I think you're attributing it to the holidays, but I think it's just truly maybe we're disconnecting and feeling overloaded at a time where we really need to be more inward and calm. There's so many different ways to approach this. And Robert, please let everybody know how they can find you. Once again, you mentioned Instagram, but your website as well. Yeah.
So Facebook is RH Nature Reconnect. Okay. Instagram is RH Nature Reconnect. The website is rhnaturereconnect.com. Nice. And on the website, we have my ebook, Rekindling Your Relationship with Nature. And if that sounds like a self-help book for your love life, it was because I want you to have a love life that includes nature.
Oh, so, me too.
So rekindling that relationship with nature.
Romantic walks on the beach, please.
Yeah, and romantic walks by yourself, because those are the ones that matter. There's a new digital class. So it's basically my 90-minute basics of meditation that I usually teach at wellness retreats. Mm-hmm. It's now in a digital format. So you get 8 short modules with handouts and some really cool bonus stuff. And, you know, it's just kind of like watch and learn at your own pace, which is great. Nice. So those are all available on the website, and I'm hoping to do more. I'm trying to wrap my brain now around how to plan a digital or an online challenge. Okay. Like a rewilding challenge. Bring it on. So absolutely. We'll see how that works out. And everyone, you can certainly hear from Robert on the Club Paranormal channel. You've got... every Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern, the Minuteman Report. Are you doing live still? I'm not. I started doing lives, and then I started traveling more, and it became so hard to find a space where it was actually safe to be live. Yeah. I think I tried it once from a Wendy's bathroom, and that didn't go so well. So we're not live anymore. We're pre-recorded. That's wild. Yeah.
That's kind of wild.
You got to do what you got to do.
But you're doing book reviews, just sort of opinion pieces,
short snippets. Sometimes they're fun kind of paranormal stories. Sometimes they're new studies that are being done in the world of UFOs and aliens. Sometimes it's a book review from our friends at either Llewellyn Publishing or Inner Tradition or Redwill Wiser. Love you guys for sending me books. Thank you. And just sharing little snippets. So it's all stuff that's kind of within the Truth Be Told family, the Club Paranormal family.
Right on.
But just in really short little bursts.
Well, I wanted you, us to have this conversation because you're doing great work. I've been watching you. A lot has happened in this past year. I know you were one of our speakers at the Parapod Festival last year. There will be upcoming events with our new organization. It's called Earthly Beings. So I hope that everybody will have a chance to check out what we're doing with that. If you live in the Southern California area, that's where we're going to be doing upcoming events. And it's all about conscious community and supporting each other. Yeah. And thank you for sharing some of these tools. And the meditation feels really good. I needed it. I needed it. I'm kind of in a weird jet lag between two worlds. And I think that was very grounding for me. So it was awesome. Thank you so much, Robert.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Once again, as mentioned, Tony Sweet also has shows every week. Friday, he does go live. 3 p.m. on Fridays, and we want to pull the community together. We want to talk to each other. It's more important than ever. That's Robert's point, is that in this world of digital, and yes, you are watching this and listening to this on a digital device, but we just want you to find that balance and let nature heal you. It's around us and it's here for us. And again, we think it's a super important tool. And I hope we want you to feel well. So I'm Bonnie Burkert, and we've got a big archive of shows at Club Paranormal. You can also find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We appreciate the shares, the likes, and of course, any comments. We'd love to hear from you. Until the next time, shine on.